acupuncture in Bologna. Is an association of doctors that practice acupuncture on patients. We do also research. And I also teach at the University of Ferrara, special physiology, at the Department of Morphology and Surgery. And the love for what they call the elan vital, the spirit of life or the energy remained in my veins. And then when I met Marcus in Berlin, everything came together. I understood it was an opportunity to create protocols and to use protocols that are based on electrophysiology for well-being and health. So it's part of my expertise. I also study HRV. I have been studying HRV as a parameter for health for many years now. And today, it's a typical topic that I normally introduce, especially in universities. I taught at QUT, Queensland University of Technology, two special courses. And I used to live in Australia, so I lived in many countries, but Australia was very dear to me. I loved it. And I lived 8 years in New Zealand. So Oceania, if there's anybody that is listening and is from those lands, I salute you.
they'll be up late to be listening to you, I'm sure. If anyone is from Oceania, please. I know we come from people from Taiwan on the call tonight. I'm seeing we've got Holland. I'm just quickly squiggling Canada, Milan. They're getting closer to home at the moment, I'm afraid. I'll see if we can find somebody, or I can wake someone up to join. But we've got a very great attendance. Thank you so much for introducing yourself. Marcus speaks incredibly highly of you. The first time we actually heard about you in the Healy world realms was when Marcus was really getting very excited about meeting you, because you were coming over to collaborate with him in the summer. So I'm not going to discuss the results of your collaboration. What I am going to do now is actually give you the presentation that you've very kindly prepared today. So I'm going to start that. I'm going to sit back and take some notes as well. And just hit the start button, right? And then you will appear in the top left of the screen. Before we start, I'm going to warn everybody, you may see Albert's face in one of the four corners because he has so much content packed into his slides. There may be a missing word or something. So if you are not sure, if it's a word that I'm not going to move Albert, but if it's a wrong word or an important chart, I will move his position so you will be able to see every chart clearly. It really is something that's going to be quite magnificent to watch. Albert, I'm going to go quiet and hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you kindly. Thank you very much. Today's topic is really watch for the people that already have it or are interested in using it, because it could be a tool, a very important tool to monitor our daily lives in terms of health. And we actually need to go straight away in the content, in the idea that we have we have developed throughout the years, basically what is important to monitor. This new concept is called quantified self. So, it was proposed a few years ago, about 20 years ago, and it really interested a smaller proportion of the public.
当然我们会谈 HRV， 这是一个主要的一个指标，主要是生命这个本身，我们生病本身的话，是我们怎么样一个状态？我们是有压力的还是没有的？
Stress or not stress, and it was 1970, the first time that doctors
那个医生怎么看一个人生病或者是有压力的
stress, but
是怎么去衡量它，从数字上来说，去衡量和测量它是有压力的，是从这 HRV 这个值去看。所以的话，你每天看表的话，我就知道你什么样的一个什么样的手表就知道你现在是什么压力的话，可以有个角度。
upgrade in our scientific understanding of life. So there's several factors that contribute to stress. One is poor sleep, the other is bad lifestyle, but we need to measure it to know it. So I'm a fan of measurements because it will give us everything that we have as a picture and profile of a patient will give us the right amount of data that we use to compute. And what do we compute? We compute stress, because stress is exactly the parameter of life that we can categorize, subdivide in 3 phases. And it's called the general adaptation syndrome. Something that you will not see so specified in other health watches and so on. They give you everything, they give you HRV, but they don't explain you exactly why you should do it. When we are challenged, when our body is challenged with any stressor, we react, and we react unconsciously. And this reaction is called fight or flight reaction, and is exactly what it says. So we fight in a situation that is stressing us, or we try to escape it. So when the body is trying to face the stressors, will automatically stop digestion and resting, so will become alert. And this will cause a little bit of a disruptor. So we are disrupted in some of the functions of our body. Sire was the first to discover this mechanism, and it was probably the most important science in neurophysiology that brought to the attention of the world this neuropsychic, emotional, and locomotor change that happened throughout the phases of our life, but most simply throughout the phases of our day. So our circadian rhythm is made of 24 hours, typical thing we measure with a watch. And during this 24 hours, we're not the same people. We wake up and we have a cascade, an ingestion of energy through phase 1, which is the alarm and reaction. And then we can after see how we monitor this in the morning. Then we go through the day, and this is the body's resistance to stress. We can cope with whatever happens in the day. And there's phase 3, when we're exhausted. Generally happens at around 5 o'clock if we start our day at 8, which is the typical time when many cultures, even traditionally, initiated the rituals of drinking tea or relaxing. It's 5 o'clock, and it's specific, so this circadian rhythm goes very well hand in hand with the concept of measuring time and measuring stress over 24 hours. Before we start measuring, we need to consider that the watch comes with an app. And in the app, we need to put certain important pieces of information. So gender is important because HRV, which is heart rate variability, will be different when computed for females or males. It will be different when computed for people that have a different mass, the body mass index. So gender and height and weight are very important parameters that cannot be wrong. So if we are 65 kilos, we cannot write we're 50. Maybe we would like to be 50, but we need to be precise and write the exact. Date of birth is also important because we use it in the future as an important part of the algorithm. There are lots of researchers that connect date of birth with specific exposure to vitamin D, gene activation from the mother, and so on. So date of birth also must be precise. And then we're good to go. So when we have an app, we downloaded it, and we can use it, we need to insert good data. And good data is the date of birth, correct one, weight and height and gender, very important. If we miss the gender, we can have some miscalculation. And then we start knowing our body. We start monitoring. The watch does it automatically. It monitors sleep, it monitors activity, steps, like any health watch. The unique part of Healy watch is basically finding suitable. So the app is making a feedback system between our nervous system, our activity, even our desire to move, for instance, can be computed. If we're told we need to move and we're not moving, the compliance of this particular trend is reduced. and it can be computed.
同时也
It also analyzes the coherence of the bioenergetic field, the special feature of this watch and the system, because once we see there's something to adjust, and we do it through logical parameters like activity, heart frequency, but also through bioenergetic fluctuation in the field, then a program will be administered. So the system determines which individualized microcurrent frequency program is more specific for that particular moment in time. It can be even a moment of the day, or it can be a whole program that can last a week, for instance. So we measure, we analyze, and we determine what frequency program has to be used. This is vital. Because nobody does it. Nobody has it in the world. I've seen 12 different watches. I use them. I use all types of brands. Very nice. They can measure your even your stride, the way you're running, the way you're sleeping. There's better and worse conditions sometimes in sleep. Some good apps can be quite accurate in telling how many hours you spend in sleep and so on. But in the end, what really matters is what do you do about it? What do you do when you're exhausted? What do you do when you're too alert? Give you some advice, but in this case, we have actually a treatment, a protocol to follow. Of course, I put it here. Maybe somebody's downloading the slides. They can just understand and see the manual. But apart from the installing the program, we're trying here to explain what we're actually measuring and why we should measure it. So, most importantly, we measured heart rate variability. We analyze heart frequency, heartbeat during the day and in different phases of the day, according to how well you sleep, so in relation to sleep quality, and also how well breathing and movement is coordinated. So the measurement data is analyzed to find frequencies that help you, for instance, relax when you're not relaxed, to reduce stress when you're stressed or too alert, and to basically maintain something that the physiologists call canon, defined as homeostasis. Homeostasis is a golden rule for the body. The more homeostatic you can maintain your body, the more you will survive on this planet. The more you'll be living a life that is free of disease. So homeostasis is the key. But how do we maintain homeostasis? Checking the parameters and making sure that we do the right thing at the right time. It's very brainy. So watch and an app are perfect for this role, perfect for this particular system that we're trying to put in place. We have two nervous systems in our body that determine different functions, completely different, and sometimes opposite. This is the parasympathetic system and the sympathetic system. And it is very important to know this because it's almost like we're giving a manual, and this is the manual of our body. How to keep our body healthy and well functioning. Well, first of all, we need to understand the activity of the autonomic nervous system. You don't need to be a neurophysiologist to understand it. You don't need to be experts. We just need to understand the basic, which is the structure of how we react to stimuli. We have two different ways of reacting according to the time of the day, according to what our biorhythm is organizing for us, and it's basically using energy or storing energy. While we use energy, we have power. So we emit power. And this is generally something that happens in the morning. In the morning, we give the highest output of energy, the highest output of hormones, and we're ready to go, ready to fight this fight or flight reflex. So sympathetic activity is what determines how effective we are on the goals that we need to establish. On the other hand, parasympathetic activity is trying to control every now and then throughout the sympathetic activity, and then at night, when we reach the phase of exhaustion and we actually need to slow down. So you can see a little bit like sympathetic activity like an accelerator, and parasympathetic activity like a brake, the car, braking. And this also controls neurotransmitters, and then activated receptor complex, and then the heart function, and of course, the proxy for this, the effect will be heartbeat, the way the heart beats, produces a beat, thus controlling the intrinsic heart rate. Because if you take the heart and you exclude it from this system, a heart without influence of the parasympathetic system will have 100 beats per minute. What makes it a bit slower is the activity of the parasympathetic system that produces that particular golden frequency that we're looking for. We're actually trying to extract the juice of life out of it. And we're getting there. And throughout the last 20 years, we got to very, very vital information in terms of health, because we can save a person's life. Our day is, as we were saying, divided in 3 phases. So we advise a person that has the watch to take a measurement, to take a reading in the morning. When you do it in the morning, you're basically calculating the energy that you accumulated during the last 24 hours and the hours of the night, and then how much energy you can use. It's almost like checking how much fuel you have in your car, and you cannot do 20 kilometers if the fuel you have is only allowing to do 10. So this fight or flight reflex or burst occurs in the morning generally, if you're not having shifts or if you're working normal day. And it's a reflex, it's a survival reflex. It was invented by nature millions of years ago to make us stronger, more reactive. For instance, one of the effects is dilation of the pupil, because we should see better. The dilation of the bronchial ending, the alveoli, so that we can have more oxygen to get more energy into the brain and to be alert. So we take the measurement in the morning. We wake up, drink coffee, we don't move too much, we don't take breakfast, we turn on the app, and we can do, if we are more relaxed, we can do the 5-minute measurement, which is more precise. Otherwise, we do the 1.5 minutes, which is less precise, but good enough. We take the measurement, we put the finger on the metal band, and we measure. seconds or 5 minutes, we have the reading. This reading will be transformed in a number that we are going to explain. What is called here the bioenergetic analysis is basically the sum of this response from the nervous system and the bioresonance, which then results in a program whenever we have the time. So the first phase of the day is the time when we're measuring this particular energy that our nervous system is granting us. First phase should be an explosive one. If you're already waking up groggy and tired, pain in the feet, it means that the first phase doesn't give us enough energy to slay dragons during the afternoon. So we need to be aware of it. We read the parameter, we read the value, and this value should tell us I can take on a task or not. Then when resting and maintaining a sort of stability during the day, because you're not using your energy, then you will use it less. But if you're active, you take a train, you take a plane, you take a car, and you're in the middle of traffic jam, then this will also be stressful. But if you have enough energy, it will not be perceived as stressful because you have the energy to manage. So when resisting and managing, then you're entering the yellow phase, which is the coping phase. And while you're doing it, we are still measuring, because regularly the watch will measure your heart frequency and your movement. For instance, if you're moving all over the places, you're counting steps. So steps are activity, and activity is metabolism. Metabolism is calories burned. So if you burn calories, then you need to ingest a certain quantity of calories to make up for the energy. It's basically energy in, energy out. But at the end of the day, when trying to repair, the body will send a message. Generally, it starts from the hypothesis, and this message is designed to reduce the output. So you'll start yawning, you'll feel less energetic. This generally occurs at night, and it's called the rest digest phase. It's a phase when the parasympathetic system should govern, should take control over the physiology of the body. And we take the measurement once or twice a day. If we are really into this routine, we can take the measurement
while
we wake up, without drinking coffee, without eating, without drinking water, without exercising, and even without breathing in a different fashion. We just normal and we take the measurement. Put the finger here, we measure. Do it at night as well. So we have 2 measurements a day. This will be optimal. If we don't have the time, we can just do it in the morning, but at least in the morning we should do it to have a set of measurements that will last for, say, a week. Then we have trend. We will calculate the trend. And why are we asking the person that uses this system to measure? It's because we want to study the anatomy of stress. We want to see how stress quantified, what kind of stress is actually impinging on the physiology of the person. So the stress that the person is taking on the shoulder has not only an influence on the mood, but on the body as well. So the hypothalamus will communicate, will send messages to the adrenal glands that will release adrenaline and noradrenaline and continuously maintain the sympathetic activation, which is basically blood pressure. Blood pressure and heart rate will go up. So if we have any patient that has blood pressure problems, this is also an area where we should investigate. Stress could cause hypertension. Stress could also cause liver problems and overeating, because the liver will release energy into the system. The immune system will be suppressed, so we'll catch colds, we'll catch more infections more easily. We produce corticosteroids very often, and all of a sudden, we find ourselves after 10 years of stress with hyperglycemia, which is diabetes, fatty liver, weak bones, weak libido, weak hair, so losing hair, our skin is dry, because we didn't understand this concept in anatomy of stress. We understand it, we cope with it, because we know how we can influence it. We never want the sympathetic system, which is this one with the red arrow, to be too active, too dominant, for too long. It's very good to use it in bursts, but then it needs to be counterbalanced by the parasympathetic. So you need to understand that behind all this, there is the intelligence of a body that survives for so many millions of years, and now is telling us, is giving us signs and symptoms. This is, for instance, what happens when the liver produces angiotensin factor, angiotensin 1 is then converted into angiotensin 2, and then all of a sudden, if the sympathetic system, so the nervous system that is keeping us alert, is too active all the time, the loop will continue and will be stressed, the blood pressure will be high, and at the same time will not be able to concentrate on the right things in life, because we'll be always living in a state of emergency. So proper eating will be put aside, proper sleeping will be modified, water and sulfur retention will ensue, perfusion, which is basically blood all over the body, will reduce, cold hands and feet, all the symptoms that we find every day in people and patients. This is alarm. It's called alarm according to Untitled Chapter. Immediate response. If we do a test in the morning, and we see that the value is around 18, 20, that's the age of our value or standard deviation of the beats. It's very precise. It means our nervous system is trying to mobilize the body for immediate physical activity. And it's short-lived. It should be short-lived. We are in a fight or flight situation. If we're moving and doing exercise, running, it is supposed to be low. It's normal. But if we are calm in the morning, any value that is lower than 20, 30, according to age, if we're 50 or 60 years of age, it could be around 35. But if it's low, and we will see the parameters, it means we are in this particular state of alarm. We woke up, we're already stressed, and our adrenal glands will produce more stimulus that will keep us with a higher glycemia, higher blood pressure, and so on, which is becoming something stressful in the future, but also pathology. And it's not optimal. it's a suboptimal health. Persists longer than few hours, then resistance is initiated. And then the resistance will actually instate a condition where the pituitary gland will secrete hormones that will allow the body to continue survival. It's coping. We are trying to cope with the problem. And so our adrenal glands will become bigger, proteins will be broken to give us energy, but one problem will arise, which is basically cortisol will be produced. Cortisol is okay in certain moments of the day, but it can really deplete the body. The bones, for instance, cortisol will reduce our immune system capacity to stand up for itself and to fight against viruses, for instance, or bacteria. So we need to make sure that the immune system has a way to be active, and this is to reduce cortisol. Aldosterone is basically controlling and regulates blood pressure and sodium and potassium. This is produced in excess, our body will swell. We might eat less, but we are in a state of resistance. Our body will keep swelling. It will be difficult to lose weight. It will be difficult to repair a wound, and so on. This has to do with a particular condition, which then brings into hypertension, into disease, and also that condition that you see in modern cultures, which is a strong towards frustration. Most of the people you see are very much fatigued. They're running low in their tank for fuel, for the fuel that should be used to come to good conclusion. So it's always like when you're stressed, when a patient is stressed, they don't use their brain, they don't use their logic, they use survival instinct, which is a set of strategies, very short-lived. For instance, to eat carbs or to eat fat is short-lived, is because we need it for the brain. To drink coffee with sugar is short-lived, it's because we are in a state of emergency. We're not planning, the body's not planning. The body is asking the strongest reflex that you can get at that specific moment to survive. If we do it over time, we go into resistance, and then we might develop hypertension, water retention, and so on. And cortisol will cause wrong distribution of muscle, wrong distribution of fat, so we'll have less muscle, less bone, more fat, problems with the liver, problems with the immune system, which is something that can be completely avoided with lifestyle. Then we get to the last phase, which is the evening. This is why we measure in the evening and we take a reading. The reading should be definitely high in the evening because it's normal for the body to send this message of rest. It's rest and digest. So it's a little bit of a breakdown of the hormonal adaptation mechanism, but it is functional. It is to impede our body to continue. And sometimes this doesn't happen. So you're still measuring your value at night. Your value is low. Again, so over 2, 3, 4 days of low values, that's dangerous. It means you're never repairing your body. It means you're never going into a phase of cocooning where you can allow your body to reduce cortisol, to reduce adrenaline, to repair the brain, to repair heart muscle, and so on. You're not allowing this. You know it if you measure. If you don't measure it, if you don't use any of these means, you will not know. But after 3 days, you will see a flat, low number. That's a bad sign. It means you're not recuperating. So this is why we need to know. There's other signs that we should recognize in our body. For instance, if our pupils are very often smaller, it's a sign that we're exhausted. It's a parasympathetic nervous system that is controlling many features. One of those is the quantity of light that reaches our pupil, because we need to be attentive and cognite and decide. And this pupil that is restricted will also cause a sort of aversion to light. If we wake up, our value is quite high, we say, okay, good, we're relaxed, but we still feel groggy and we have problems with the light. It means we didn't recuperate enough during the sleep. We're trying to do it in the morning. And this is delayed sleep phase. 20% of the people have delayed sleep phase, so they wake up at 8 but they still sleep. They might have a little bit of a dizzy condition in their head, small pupils, and on the other hand, some of the people who have dilated pupils will wake up very quickly, strongly. It means they are ready for the fight or flight response. And this is something we can check on ourselves. When the stressors, the traffic, the economic stress, it could be even relocating in other houses or countries or children or a disease of the child, all the stressors will produce a countershock phase, will resist to the point where we cannot do anything else other than let go. This phase is generally an exhaustion stage. The body, the resources are almost exhausted. I say almost because there's a little bit left in the tank just to breathe and to maintain the body, the BMR, the basic metabolism. But sometimes we see certain people at that phase and it looks like they're depressed. They're trying to recover. The value that you will see here on the watch is high, will be high, something like 50, for instance. It's the general adaptation. It was discovered by Untitled in 1956, and it was a gift to humanity because if we control this, we're basically steering essentials of our life, and we can measure it with this watch. We can measure, for instance, that if there is too much sympathetic activation, there's also too much emotional reactivity. If there is decreased sympathetic activity, there is less emotional activity. So anhedonia, for instance, we're not happy for anything. Abulia, we don't feel like doing anything. And it's not necessarily depression or hormonal depression. It is a condition of exhaustion of certain functions of the nervous system. Very, very important. And every human should have this sort of manual or method to measure. And at the same time, we added one more step. We're not only measuring. When we wake up in the morning and we take the BRA, Bioenergetic rhythm analysis, it's just a simple ECG measurement that then computes. Then programs will be created. This is the procedure, very simple. Click on the BRA, the purple button, the message start appears. Asking us to press on the metallic band on the watch, we press for 1.5 minutes. Otherwise, if we want more precise data, we wait for 5 minutes and we stay there. We don't change our breathing, don't do anything special. We don't lie back, we just stay sitting. And while we're measuring, we can see a curve, the ECG curve, and the PPG, the photoplethysmography, which is the one below. The extract of this reading, which is a full body reading, the BRA, which is the bioenergetic rhythm analysis. It's a segment of the fitness stream. Then the heart rate, it could be, for instance, as we've seen previously here, it could be a heart rate of 85. And the HRV. The HRV rate in this case will be the value that we analyze. Stress, you can see here the curve of stress. It can be high, low, but we can measure it. Measure the quantity of stress and how much we can cope with. It's derived, HRV is derived from the heart frequency. It's a beat-to-beat frequency, and it controls our endurance. Our fitness means to be fit, to be capable of coping with certain situations or stressors. Influences our capacity to recovery. It influences our cardiac health, which is the future of our health. And this also connects to the so-called heart-brain balance, because it connects the brain and nervous system, the diaphragm and the breathing, the chest cavity. So breathing also very important. The arterial blood pressure that happens in the chest, and the way we are actually managing ourselves under stressful conditions. So one hint is, and the watch also controls that, and there's routines we can do, breathing. breathing
这个深呼
influences
吸就是让你的
the
这个
parasympathetic
交感
nervous
神
system.
经就
So
开始
during
有一
inspiration,
些调节，
we breathe in, the vagal tone is
知道你的
suppressed,
血压的
therefore
大
blood
小
pressure goes
调
high.
节，
When we exhale,
它心率的变小。
heart rate decreases and then chest cavity
比
decreases.
方说我们
Basically,
我
when
们
we
放松的时
exhale and
候
the，thorax is relaxed, then blood pressure and heart frequency is more controlled. This also teaches us that one of the most
所以每
important
天你
things
还
we
可
can
以
do
做
during the day
呼
is
吸的锻
breathing
炼。
exercises because they control heart rate, they control heart rate variability. And we use something
我
called the
们可
time
以
domain
在
to measure
在
this.
心
From heart to heart, the
这个
heartbeat
心
systole
心这个就挤
squeezes
出
the
血
blood
液的那
throughout
个
the
之
body.
间
That's its job.
做一个呼吸的一
But
个间
it
隔的一
produces
个，
a
它可以有
a
个调节
phase
就
of a
是
current that then is recorded, this R
这个
value.
2跟2之间的一个区间，有个叫825、845到
Impulse, the electrical
50之间，
impulse
它
that comes
是
from
一
the
个
heart. Now, from this peak and the other peak, there's an interval.
这个叫
This
2
interval is called
2
the
2
R
2的这个区间，
interval, and is measured in milliseconds.
就是
So
800
there's
多、
845
828、
milliseconds
845
here, 700 milliseconds here. It varies.
这个是越
The
大的
more
数值的话
it
越
varies,
好。
the better. That's the key to understand HRV.
这个不是
Variability.
心率，
Because heart rate
1
is a
分钟呢，
median.
你可能
In
80、
1 minute,
86
I had
次，
86 of these ones. But the HRV is asking, yes, but what was the difference in
在每一
milliseconds
个这
between
个
each?
心率之间，它有一个就是这个
RR interval that we're measuring.
是一个
The RR
微
interval is giving us a value called
秒的一
standard
个
deviation,
30
which is
到
a
30到
formula,
100的
mathematical formula for the standard
millisecond 的一
deviation
个
of this
这个
RR
时间
that
这个
are
时间。
normalized, and so it's called SDNN. So the value that you've seen before is SDNN. Normal
正常应该
values
是
are
30
between 30 and a half, like a 15-year-old
之间，
generally trained will have a value of, say, 100 millisecond, 80 in the morning. A 60-year-old sedentary
65
lifestyle
65
will
岁以上
probably
的
have
大概
around
是
35
35
in the morning. So when speaking about heart rate variability, we need to refer to the actual value or
根据
parameter
人的年龄不
that
同，
is
它
used
这
to
个资料
quantify variation,
它很多都
and
大
the
小不同
variation is very significant for
一个
us.
健康程度
We
有
take
不
a
同。
reading, then of course we have a curve, and we say, oh, for 3
如果
days
是
every
3
morning
天
I had a
3
value
天
of
连续3
20
天我都是在
unstressed.
20、
It's not good.
25以下的话呢，
So my
非常
heart is
大的
too
压力。
precise. The Germans have even a word for that. It's called Überordnung, too ordered, which I love because it's typical of German mentality. Too ordered makes stress. See here, from tachograms, histograms, RRBs, and SDNN values, healthy people have an irregular. When a person gets sick, the heart variability goes down, so the heart becomes more constant. And people think, oh, constant is good.
他说
Yes,
这个
maybe
人
in
他的身体的话，这个变
structural
心率是
engineering,
变
but not in the
是
body.
变
The
化
body
太
doesn't
大
like
的是
um,
经常变的话，那变化的如
very
果是一成
constant
不变的话呢，是
functions. It likes to
是
vary. It has
是它
of chaos, which is the token of health in this case. So sickness and stress will make the heart frequency very
就
regular.
是上
Like
面
the one
就
you
是
see
你看上
above
面那
here.
个11
One second, one second, one second, one second. This is 60 beats per minute, where
就是上
from
面
one
那个
beat to the other
11
is
秒
exactly
1
1,000
秒，好
milliseconds.
像很
And people say, oh,
而且
so
好像
nice
是
and
说这个
precise
规
and
则
ordered. It's not good. It's bad for health. So it's important to pass this message. We also have other ways to measure the frequency with other tools. One is called not time domain, but frequency domain, and will give us a ratio of sympathetic and parasympathetic activity. How much of this in comparison to that? And we do it with something called high or low frequency. Sympathetic has a low frequency, and parasympathetic has a high frequency activity, which means that it changes. Parasympathetic changes happen very quickly. If you ever heard about the concept of
如果你看到
you see
像
something,
你
you
那个
immediately know good or bad for you. That is the parasympathetic nervous system
你
that
是说你
will
就是
make
紧张，你就是胆
an elaboration
你胆
of what you're seeing, perceiving, smelling, maybe,
你
and it
做
will
什么
give
事
you a
情都
very
感
quick
觉有一种
answer, 0 0.15 to 0.4 hertz speed. That is the response. And when we analyze this, we use a spectral analysis, but it's basically to evaluate how much of these two together you have. What is the ratio between your sympathetic activity, which is the go, 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 and your parasympathetic activity, which is more the pondering, the rest and digest. Indians used to represent this with the sun, which means the day, and the moon, which means the calming, relaxing, soothing energy of the night. Well, calming, soothing, relaxing energy of the night reflex of the parasympathetic nervous system, especially this nerve that comes out of the pons and goes in the lungs, it goes in the stomach. It's called the pneumogastric nerve or vagus. It's a 10th annual nerve, and it has this visceral effect, urinary effect, digestive effect. The most important nerve in the practice of yoga, because while influencing your breathing, you can influence your SDNF, you can influence your variability. Therefore, your overall, as you see, for instance, there's a respiratory cycle. Now, this frequency zone is highly influenced by the rhythm and depth of the breathing. So you breathe in, you breathe out, and then, of course, you like to see something irregular. So the value after you measure for 90 seconds on this, the value you would like to see is something around 40, 50. You think, okay, well, that's good. If you see 20, it's not good. If you see 15, it's very bad. And this is what happens with these receptors in the neck. This is the carotid arch receptors here in this area. And there's an invasion of arterial bioreceptors. Bioreceptors are receptors of pressure. Then you have carotid sinus receptors. So if something happens with your neck, you had a whiplash, for instance, you can also have a change in variability. You're busy all day, you might cry, you have panic attacks. People all of a sudden think you've been possessed by a demon, or you have some sort of psychotic break. No, it's the neck. It's influencing your carotid sinus receptors. Therefore, also your vagus gets stretched, and then you feel like you're skipping a beat, or you have a problem in standing. There's many conditions, and nobody speaks about this because they're not very much into biomechanics, but the spectrum of low frequency is the activity of the sympathetic nervous system, and biomechanical conditions like whiplashes or accidents of the neck can change dramatically from one day to the next. There's another thing that influences the way we feel stressed and we change our HRV, and that is the temperature. This is why people that live in colder weather tend to be more schematic. They like programs, they like to foresee the future because you're more concentrated on the sympathetic activity. The more you are exposed to the sun, the more your vagus nerve is working, then the body changes. Of course, you have skin, pigments, and so on, but also the nervous system, which is very, very important. So sometimes when you see that your value is low, a few days, take a hot bath, shower, a hot shower, keep your body warm. Nobody will tell you because they always like to prescribe you antidepressants and prescribe you anxiolytics because the entire body system, the entire nervous system is taken for granted. Nobody looks into that. They look into the manual. Oh, when somebody's anxious, what do you do? Oh, benzodiazepines. Okay, take benzodiazepines. They don't even look at you in the eyes to see maybe you're cold and you have a cold nose. If you're cold, your vagal system will decrease its function. You can see it here in the chart where you see the person that has a core that is warmer, the red area, but the appendices, the extremities are cold. This is a signal of stress. For many people, especially the very lean ones, the ones that don't have fat in the body. So if you have a person that is very stressed and for 4 or 5 days is measuring low on the HRV, also try to wonder whether it's winter or if they're hypothermic, because hypothermia is one of the causes of stress. And people don't consider that, but it's very frequent. This is also thermoregulation loops, and this is what happens in the body. It's a long frequency that changes, but it's typical of worry and rumination. It's called VLF, very low frequency, and you can measure it through HRV. Happens when the activity of the system, the sympathetic nervous system, in response to stress, is kicking up too quickly and without the compensation of the parasympathetic nervous system. So it's obsessive thoughts, worrying, rumination, loops that cannot close down. Then a program will be administered because we check for all the activities that the body has. We produce a program through the bioenergetic field. Then you do the program either with the ear clips or with the wristbands. Spend 20 to 50 minutes according to the type of programs, because I assume everybody is acquainted with Healy. You treat your body with the right program, you counteract that phase. Then if you cold, you also take a warm bath, and then all of a sudden everything is restarting. You know, if your body is super stressed in the first phase, you'll have a vasoconstriction, something you can see here, like the blue hand, in comparison to the red hand. Blue means no heat. It means that all the heat is kept inside, but you also have a change in energy utilization, lower lipolysis, and then, of course, people that live in colder places are more exposed. So if you come from Norway, you come from the Netherlands, it's colder than Spain, so you'll be more exposed to this, and there is a higher chance for hyperactivation of the sympathetic nervous system, with results as depression, fatigue, suicide. And it's not psychological, it's neurological, and it's because we forgot to consider human physiology for so many years in a patient. So remember warmth, remember breathing, remember good rhythms. And this is also a reflex of good variation during the 24 hours. So we eat timely, we exercise, we breathe, we do our eating program, and the result will be coherence, positive emotion appreciation, love, care, sense of family, sense of belonging, and so on. The opposite is a continuous firing of the nervous system, which always puts us in the condition of fight or flight. Fight is irritation, and flight is anxiety, frustration. I don't know if I can cope, I don't know if I'm good enough. All this sort of pseudo-psychological conditions are neurological, and they constitute incoherence in the nervous system, something we can control, should control. So we analyze, and then after the test, we analyze and determine 6 balanced parameters using measurements of heart rate variability. So the core is heart variability, and then these are the parameters. Heart rate is the frequency, the median in 1 minute. The VRA is the HRV value, and we look at this one especially. Then the stress level, everything should be in the middle. Otherwise, we have higher or lower values which are not good. Regardless of the values, the intrinsic algorithm will compute all of this, including activity, sleep quality, and then produce a program. In this case, for instance, thyroid gland program, or balance program. We need to do it. It's simple because we can lock in the clips or the wristbands, and then we do something else. We maybe relax, we're checking something on the computer. The program is working. It's microcurrent. Microcurrent influences our body at many levels, but definitely a neurological level. According to these parameters, we also have a fluctuation during the day, and this fluctuation is also influencing our breathing. Now, breathing in relation to heart frequency is very crucial. So you have in the watch functions, they will allow you to synchronize, according to your rhythm, breathing sessions. So you can schematically produce some spaces in your day where you do your breathing. Now, if you're breathing properly, you reduce stress, you reduce the engagement of the sympathetic nervous system, you increase the introspection. Now, introspection will go back and find your inner motivation and coherence. It's many times when you see people that are lost in life, they lost their goals, they wanted to do something, they wanted to become something, now they're stuck into this contingent situation, they're frustrated, they don't like it, they don't like their job, they're eating too much, they have hypoglycemia. Down a little bit, just take your time, measure, your value is low, you need to do something in the program, you're breathing, and it's not expensive, it is not demanding on your routine. You just take 5 minutes to breathe and to find your coherence. Find your coherence back. Everything restarts, everything reboots, but you need to find that 0 point. That 0 point of coherence, and breathing is a wonderful candidate to help. You can do program, Healy program, and then at the same time or after you can do some breathing. Now, why slow breathing benefits most of the conditions? Because even in diabetes or high sugar, how fasting glucose works. Well, you wake up in the morning, you measure your fasting glucose is 140, basically diabetic. But what does it mean? It means that you have too much because you're ready to fight. Because glucocorticoids are moving your sugar and the bloodstream so that pre-diabetes or diabetes, you have low heart rate variability, low barrel reflex sensitivity, which means basically when you stand up, you lose your balance, you're dizzy. You have a value of say 20, 18 in the morning. You have low parasympathetic nervous system, therefore you're frustrated. You have low arterial function and compensation, therefore you have hypertension and blood problems. And then you have low tissue oxygenation because capillaries are too tight. We need dilation of capillaries. It's almost like saying we need to open up. And when the body opens up, oxygen flows through it, blood flows through it, and then all the organs get their share of oxygen and nutrients. We also do this programs with controlled breathing. So breathing helps controlling something called RMSSD, which we'll see in a second, which is also another golden rule that we need to take us. If we do this, the power of this control is so predictable that we can also treat conditions, personal condition of inflammation, because inflammation is caused by the absence of this particular heal reflex. The healing reflex only acts when we relax, when we're back in this coherent state. Then the parasympathetic system will have its role, and its role is the modulation of the brain-gut axis or the inflammatory bridge. The interaction between the gut and the brain is based on this complex system that also modulates neural functions through parasympathetic. Helps a lot. So the effects of exercise is also very important. So there's going to be times when it would be important to walk or to run according to our condition. If we have arthritis or gout or many other problems, just a bit of a walk would be good. But make the heart pulse. The heart will clean arteries, maintain metabolic balance, temperature, and digestion. So sedentary lifestyle is another killer. We need to consider that. This is why watches have activity tracking. They have run cycles. They have sports. You can do something simple to start. It doesn't need to be super sporty. It's just walking. It's just steps. You do some breathing. You do some 10,000 steps according to your desire. Training. It needs to be easy, reachable, and doable. And day by day, if you do the program, if you do the microcurrent program, it will be easier and easier, but at the same time, you'll build a plateau. You'll build a constant increase in fitness. And fitness doesn't mean that you're a person that is interested in sport. It means you'll survive. It's called fitness of the species for a reason. You're fit to live. And in order to be fit to live, you need to give a sense to biology, which is you need to move and do activity. So this is very important points. One is inner motivation. We see it with breathing and progress. Motion and activity is crucial because you need to make sure your body is mobile. So it's just 5-10 minutes a day. You do some stretching. It's good enough. You just set your exercise routine. And will give you a lot of good effects. One is circulation benefit. The other is opioids. Your body will produce androgenic substances that are similar to opium to relax you. Therefore, you will influence sleep. You will influence digestion. Another is balanced feeding.
吃饭
When
的
you
时
eat,
候也要
always
有意
eat
识的去
mindfulness.
吃，
You eat
要
with
放心的吃，
mindfulness in mind. So mindful eating is basically
你就
a
会
way
去
that
控制
allows
自
you
己
to
吃的东西
control
的
what
量
you are
和健
ingesting.
康的程
You're
度。
also
不
chewing.
要吃，因为忙的时候你可能
You're
会
not
去
at a
吃
fast
那
food
快
where you're
餐。
gulping things. You are controlling feeding. And feeding,
如
even
果
if
你
you
吃的很
eat a
多，
lot,
可能
and
是
if
你
the
身
food is
体
not
说
super good
吃很
quality,
多
what
都
is
是
really
不
important
应该
is
吃
the
的。
way you eat. Shouldn't be
比
quickly
方说你就是吃
on the
快
run.
快餐的
But
形
fast
式的
food
话呢，
mentality is a
销售
recipe
可
for
能消费
disaster.
消耗
Digestion
消化
and
很
this
快。
type of chewing and swallowing comes from
3000年前吃
300
的
to
东西和现在吃
30,000
的
years
是有
ago.
很大的变化。
So we still
但是我们的
use
这
the
个
same
肠道
type
也
of
有很大
digestion,
的变
and
化。
digestion also controls the brain,
因为当
influences
时我们的食物结
mood,
构和现在食物结构不
influences
一样，
behavior.
因为我们的
So
工作，
start
就
eating,
是
just make sure
人
that
生都不一
you
样。
relax, you breathe, and then if you had a very low value in the morning, especially after you measure, you have 20, it means it's low. So you should consciously make
所
an
以你吃
effort
饭时要
to
吃的慢一
reduce the
点，多
speed
嚼
at
一
which
下。
you're eating and chew more.
就是你可
Otherwise,
能
you'll
吃的
digest
太
only
快的话，你可
20%
能
of
20%都
what
是
you
可
eat.
能都是浪费了。
Vagal control also
就没法吸收，
influences the intestine, the
造
heart,
成
the
食物消化或者
microbiota,
是这个
and
这
the
个
fermentation, the production of precursors of neurotransmitters, inflammatory cytokines, and this
这是给你
has
一个
a
很
brings a
强的
big
一个信
message
号。
with us. Tells us that we can control inflammation through a simple set of practices that we can do every day.
就
It
你
needs
每
to
天
be
需要去
done daily. This is why a watch
每
and
天
an
需
app
要
are
去
a
测
perfect
量的，每
candidate
天
because
做一个常
they are
规的一个
timekeeper.
监测。
They're a routine keeper. They also you
而
can
且你
also
可以
set
给
up
自己做一个提醒，
of
可能
inactivity.
有2个提
So
醒或者
whenever
3个提醒，
you're
是
too
不是？
inactive, there's a reminder that comes up and tells you
可以
to do something. You
设
can
闹
pick
钟，
it. If it's the right
比
time,
方
you
说
can
睡觉前或者是
exercise
运动
your
前，
phrenic nerve via
你
the
可以
breathing.
去
You can exercise your nervous system, but you want to control
看你现在是安全的还是在紧
balance
急的
between
危险的
vagus
状态，
and
或者
sympathetic.
是
This is the
是
theory
在受
of
危险的状态，
parasympathetic
然后的
sympathetic
这个场景，
nervous system
所以
put
让你身体
together
在一个
under the
很
name
好
of
的一个状态。
polyvagal theory. And it's very much related to how
如
we
果你
feel
感觉到受
about
威胁
our
的
life.
时候呢，
If we feel threatened,
你会动，
then we might freeze.
因为东西太多了，
The
太
situation
太
is too
让
much
你
for
拉
us.
倒。
Whereas if you feel that the situation is dangerous, but you can do something about to
你的
counteract
你
it,
的肌肉就会
then
比较
muscle
就
tension
就
will
会
increase,
调整。
aggression will increase, hostility, fear, and so on.
我们是
What
当
we
时人们是
were
安
aiming
全的
at
这
is
种状
the
态。
safe situation, which is also related to a part of the vagus, which we will see in a second. So the vagus that we have seen, the ventral vagal complex, is giving us the way
这里有3个状态 ，VVC、
communicate, to engage socially, to be
SEVC
open and relaxed.
就相当
The
于
nervous
旁的
system
这
that
个
we
这
see
个这个
with
值，
this value low, when this value is very low, it
你
means
确定你是不是在
we are on the fight
是
or
在应
flight
急状态的一种状态？
response, trying to get as much as possible. So rhythm is also important.
你的植物神经，
The
就是
sense
植
of
物就是
being
交感神经、植物神经、
hindered
自律神
by
经
certain
系
situation
统
is
都
possible,
在
but we're
都
still
是
fighting.
在各种
Whereas
条
when
件
we're
导致
completely
你的
exhausted,
对
another vagal area takes place, which is the influence of the dorsal vagal complex. And this is when we feel immobilized. We feel trapped. This is our passive defense system. The feeling is that of
这是
depression.
一种叫适应
We need
对
to
压力的
measure
适应的一种
the 3
一种
phases
一种状
because
态是什
here
么呢？
is where HRV analysis really saves our
身体
life.
感觉到是一种
Are we
一
in
种状态，
the alarm
是一种
phase?
事情，
Therefore, this is low. Are we in the
然后身体就马上就
exhaustion
紧
phase?
张
This
紧张起
therefore
来，
this
这
is
个 fight or flight
high,
就是
too high, and we feel
身体就会去分析。
then there's a value that we compute with our algorithms, which is technically called RMSSD, which is the square root mean of successive
就是讲身体在不同的4个状态下，一种是
these.
就是说紧急
And
状
we
态，一种是
use
紧
this
张状
in
态，或
relation
者是就是
to
控制
how
状态、
well
压
you
力状
recover.
态，或者是觉
The
得正常状态。
RMSSD is the proof that you just recovered
当
and
你
you
这个问
cleared
题紧急危
all
险
your
过去了
problems.
以后呢，
And
你
one
的
of the strategies is to induce sleep. when the analysis is low and the sleep is disturbed, the rest cycle and the sleep cycle is over. This is very dangerous for the body because we can be brought into a condition of complete exhaustion over a period of, say, 3, 4, 6 months. There's only one exception, which is motherhood. The mother wakes up every night and maybe the child has colics, child cannot breathe properly, so she wakes up, she loses sleep. But the mother has a helper, which is prolactin, a hormone produced during pregnancy and used to breastfeed the child. If prolactin is not there because we're not in a condition of motherhood, loss of sleep can be very dangerous for the brain. It's also connected to stroke. So what happens is that we can either manually or following the program, because this is the goal of the app. The goal of the app is to produce something that we use, and this is very often a sleep program. A sleep program can be activated at night. So just before we go to sleep or 1 or 2 hours before, one of the programs for sleep could be activated. And then we do it. This one, for instance, balanced sleep is 52 minutes. We enter a phase of recovery, a long recovery. Deep sleep, REM sleep, and light sleep. But what is most important is to get enough deep sleep. This is the most meaningful and practical feature to recuperation in our body. The average healthy values of this are 20 and 50. It is not visualized yet, and the app is not visualized, but it will be computed as parasympathetic activity. How well do you recover during sleep? So this is why we say we take a measurement in the morning, which is also an RMSD, and then we take a measurement at night. And then we see how well are we resting and healing. RMSD is a scientific equivalent of innate healing reflex. Expresses recovery, healing of wounds, healing gastric ulcers, for instance, healing of stresses, for instance, tendonitis. I have tendonitis. If I don't have RMSD high, and I'm always go, 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 I don't give room for improvement, and my body will not heal. This is a formula that we will use. RMSD is a blah blah, it's a mathematical thing, but it works. And it's all about how we measure the RR. So the intertime between one beat and the other. This makes it. We find a suitable program, and then we need to locate a time during the day when we do it. Generally 30, 40, 50 minutes. So when do I have 50 minutes where I can wear the clips or the wristbands and do it? Because this will lead to good control, good neuroendocrine control, and I'm good to go. And then I can go to the schedule screen that shows me the schedule of recommended programs based on
right out of bed, so I have to charge it. So I need to connect with Wi-Fi, so it's a little bit further. Hopefully you can see it. 线上的朋友们能听懂英文吗？或者有中文的翻译能听见吗？请回答。
So there's many implications that everything has to do with controlling inflammation and maintaining this particular vagal activity, which also makes it more pleasant for the others, more social, and less distant, less cold, less exhausted, and so on. It's all in the nervous system. It's not about psychology per se, it's about how we control this wonderful mechanism. If we can control it, we have the steering wheel of life under our hands. We can also control inflammation of the periphery, which is, for instance, inflammation of the colon, inflammation of the joint. It's all coming. Now, this is just, for instance, a neurostimulator that activates the vagus nerve. Just to tell you that in surgery, you can apply this neurostimulator to control inflammation. It's a proof that if this system is activated artificially, then inflammation stops or is decreased. We can do it not invasively through the control of our own system. We can also control insulin and body weight. We can control glucagon-like peptide. We can control insulin production because we recover. But we need to schedule the 24 hours, and the watch is the best candidate. We can do it, for instance, with organ clock is 24 hours. And the Healy watch organ clock always provides the right stimulation for the meridians. The meridian is the name used in TCM,
在每天的
traditional
特
Chinese
定的时
medicine,
间，它
but it's just the
2个
time of
时
the
间，
day.
每
It's
2个小时是
2
一个
hours
极端
slice
的，
during the
在最好
24.
的一个刺激它
And
的
you
这
can
个
use
状
these
态。
programs because everything is controlled by the suprachiasmatic nucleus in the brain, which controls time.
这是一个就是食物流出的一个就是
And cellular circadian clocks also reduce inflammation if well managed. Control the lymphatic flow, which is basically cerebral and lymphatic flow, which is the brain repairs, neuronal metabolism, which means our brain doesn't get old, and blood-brain barrier functions, which means our brain doesn't get inflamed by products like ammonia. And this is through the control of points in our checkpoints in our 24-hour period. Just give an example here. For instance, this is the morning here at 6 o'clock. I don't know if you see the pointer, but the sharpest rising blood pressure is 6:45, and then you start increasing hormones, increasing alertness at 10. This is the period where you can actually use the highest output. You want to do some exercise that is intense, you can do it at that time if you don't have to work. Or if you're going to work, you can postpone it. But then at 12, time to control your breathing. It's because it's a sort of critical position during the 24 hours where you'll have more power to influence your breathing. Then best coordination, if you do movement at around 40, you go for a walk, for instance, 10 minutes, nothing big. And the concept is do the right thing at the right time, not exaggerate, not 6 hours of jogging. It's just the right action at the right time. And for instance, at 6:30, blood pressure is very high, so don't drink coffee at 6:30. Don't take anything salty, because it will increase blood pressure if you already have high blood pressure. And you can do, according to this meridian clock, a certain program at a specific time of the day to coordinate, to synchronize that particular function. For instance, the function of the bladder at 3 o'clock, if you have bladder infection, or if you have a tendency to suffer from this particular condition. The last but not least is the effect of stress on eating, which you can control through the monitoring of the vagus nerve. If you monitor it, you see that it's not working properly, then one very good advice is to always walk after a meal. Just eat something, then you do 2,000 steps, nothing major, but this allows the vagus nerve to just walk with you. And the signals also control gastric acid secretion, digestive enzymes, and blood glucose. So you are putting aside diabetes, you're controlling gastritis, many problems that arise from low HRV readings in the morning mean that you are in a contingency state, right? Living an emergency, which also brings you towards binge eating whatever, chips, and then coffee, and then cake. This is the symptom that you are running low energy, so you're trying to get more food, but you're not using your vagus nerve, which is you should do while you see yourself doing this, like eating poorly. And this is also something that happens for the control of the weight. So if you're relaxed in the morning and relaxed at night, this is generally 2 moments when you're controlling your metabolic health. You have attenuated metabolic rhythms, so you're not eating properly, but you're eating a little bit here, then lollies there, and then a bit of coffee, then the biscuit. You're distributing. That's attenuated metabolic rhythms. Then you have desynchronization of time, desynchronization and weight gain. It's called chronobesity, obesity, because the nervous system is dysregulated. And then you have lower vagal reflexes and then more histamine stimulation. Therefore, when you eat something, you have this feeling, you have allergies or tolerance to histamine released in the stomach because it's not controlled by the healing reflex. You see how important it is. And everything sums up into knowing your body. But of the body, you knowing and using this particular very fine balance and you do it for say 7 to 10 days, then everything will start rebooting by itself. Because it's not only the breathing or the moving that any watch will advise you to do. It's the microcurrent program that is actually molding the new self.
I think you have, Albert. Absolutely super. Thank you very much. I'm sort of quiet because I've been really paying a lot of attention to this.
I'm sorry, I don't know what to get back.
Last 15 minutes or so.
Sorry,
Because
I
I'm now going to look at how I
have to
run
go
my
back.
Healy.
Anybody can
How
tell
I
me
actually
how can I
my
get
Healy.
back?
I want to get the most out
You
of my
see me?
HRV as well. But I'm just looking at all these links that are causing, and yet there are so many ways we are able to control a lot of variables in our
I
life.
probably
I
have
didn't realise
to
how
turn
easy
it
would
off
be,
and
because
back down.
I'm one of those that probably that does the cake and the coffee. I'm one of the people that's done all these bad things in the past, even occasionally now. I won't
Can
deny
you
it.
still see me?
But I think what you have done is to open my mind and open
I'm
everybody's
back.
mind. That's where we're in the right place, where your work and your research combined with Marcus's work and Marcus's research converging together to give us the best opportunity through measurement and then applying it with a mixture of the Western style and with the Chinese understanding as well of TCM. It's just incredible how all of these things can come together, and then through the Healy and through.
This is my first time since 2 years.
Come up with a piece of training.
So hopefully you get something and send me some feedback. What do you think? And I'm going to, if you can see it now, I'm good, and you can tag me some message and tell me what whether you can hear the Chinese or English. Okay.
At this moment when I'm giving you all the praise. So anyway, listen, guys. You're still here. Great. Yes, come back. Press your blue man again, and keep your press the little blue thing on the top left, and you're back on screen.
Yeah, it seems to.
I can't believe. I was giving you all this praise.
I'm still here.
You ran away on me.
I think it's a feet to my ankles.
Now try now. Now try it on you, and you should be okay. You should be able to reappear. Because I've just cut the connection. Yeah. Right, you should be. Well, I can see you're still, but I can't see you.
吴彤啊，我非常高兴啊，今天刚刚做那个 Facebook Live show。
Thank you so much. It was amazing. Excellent sharing. We did have, I think it was Colette, whose husband is Australian, if that counts for you. She said that at the beginning as well. Great, you're back with me now. I'm just reading through. They all want a replay of this. We're officially not allowed to give a replay of this one because it's proprietorial, but I will speak to the amazing Christina Vittorio, who coordinates everything behind the scenes, and see what we can get you. Wow, thank you. I mean, I think that pretty much sums it up, Albert. You know, I can. It's very easy for all of us after listening to you and really studying and learning with you and from you. We can see why it's just so much fun for both you and Marcus.
Yes. It's fun and helpful.
And I do hope that you're coming to, hopefully, well, COVID permitting, etc. Hope you'll be coming to our event at the end of February, where if you want to meet this gentleman, he will be in the audience then. We may have to get you to sing for your supper and come and do some more presentation, Albert, but we'll discuss that nearer the time. I don't want to put pressure on you at the moment, but we're just starting to come speak about some of our extra guest speakers. And I'm just blown away with what you have done for everybody here. So, Albert, thank you very much indeed. Everybody who's been on this call, thank you all as well. Thank you for staying the last in the journey with it. I know it was a long call and it was a packed call, but I hope that you have got so many good returns from this. And you know what? This is just the beginning of what's happening. And there are more things that come in that we can't tell you about. There's an invisible sniper with a laser on Albert's forehead in case he gives any secrets away. And I've got one on me as well, so we're not allowed to, unfortunately. But listen, hopefully Marcus will be back fairly soon as well. He sent his apologies, he was unable to make it. He had all sorts of technical issues, so he kind of threw in the towel. But I will let him know that you've done a phenomenal job on behalf of both yourself and him. Albert. Thank you very much for your time. Everybody have a wonderful evening. day, night, or whatever it is for you. And we will see you all again very soon. Take care. Bye from us. Bye for now. Bye.
结束，刚刚会议结束了 ，Marcus 去上不来。今天我把大家的会议打开了，你们有什么问题可以问一下。这个叫幸运的评论，你说。
你好，老师。我现在的手表那个